They laughed in my face, literally. Picture it. I'm standing there at the HOA meeting, sleeves rolled up, engineer's notebook in one hand, municipal drainage credentials in the other, and Brent Caldwell Morrison, president of Pinehurst Meadows Homeowners Association. Decked out in designer labels and clutching her coffee like a trophy, looks me dead in the eye and says, "Garrett's being dramatic again. Fine him $300 for spreading panic." No, really, $300 for spreading panic. For warning my neighbors that the storm drains would, fail if we didn't fix them. But hey, nothing says, "Welcome to the neighborhood," like a penalty for giving a damn, right? I begged for months. Fix the drains now, or the next big storm will destroy this neighborhood. And every time, the board just smiled, nodded, and fined me again. Like a slot machine that only pays out in passive aggression. 6 months later, I'm standing in my driveway, bone dry, sipping coffee while the rest of the street looks like the Titanic set. Neighbors running around with shop vacs, tears in their eyes, the acrid stench of backed-up water stinging the air. Me? Not a drop in my basement. Not a single drop. I'd warn them. I'd even offer to fix it myself, but hey, what do I know? I'm just the only guy here who actually understands drainage systems. It's funny, isn't it? How nobody wants an engineer around until the water's up to their knees and their $80,000 kitchen remodel starts floating. So let's back up a bit. This wasn't an overnight disaster. This whole mess started 8 months ago when I moved to Pinehurst Meadows. My name's Garrett Thorne. I'm 48, and up until last year, my biggest problem was trying to keep my wife, Sarah, comfortable through her cancer treatments. When she passed, I needed quiet, a place to start over. Pinehurst seemed perfect. 70-ish homes, pristine lawns, everyone waving like they're auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. The HOA dues were $385 a month, which should have been my first red flag. That's not a community fee. That's a please stop noticing things tax. You want to know what makes engineers so annoying? We notice. I noticed how the grass always squished underfoot near the storm drains. How every time it rained, the sump pumps hummed through the walls like industrial-grade white noise. That faint, musty basement smell that clung to the air, mixed with that overpriced mulch they truck in every spring. The developer, Sunset Vista Construction, had clearly butchered the drainage, probably just to squeeze in a couple extra houses per lot. Wrong slopes, tiny pipes, puddles that stuck around for days after a drizzled textbook overwhelmed system. And then I met Brent Caldwell Morrison. If entitlement had a face, it'd be wearing platinum blonde highlights, a white BMW X5 key fob, and a necklace that probably cost more than my car. Her house, of course, sits on the corner, biggest one on the block, granite everywhere, real estate signs out front more often than not. She sells luxury homes, so her commission checks are glued to Pinehurst's premium reputation. Which means, God forbid, anyone should mention an infrastructure problem. That's property value kryptonite. My first mistake? Caring. For real. I walked around, did what I do, measured flow rates, ran some calculations, built out a professional engineering assessment. 40% capacity shortfall. I'm talking about math that screams, you're gonna flood. Submitted the whole nerd package. Photos, drawings, flood projections. Neighbor helping neighbor, right? Wrong. Brent's email. We appreciate your concerns, but Sunset Vista has assured us everything is up to code. Translation. Shut up, you're scaring the buyers. Board meeting. She gives me 2 minutes to speak. Cuts me off mid-sentence. We don't need doom and gloom scaring away potential residents. Her laugh? Sounds like silverware caught in a garbage disposal. That's when I realized this wasn't about engineering. It was about money. Mother Nature delivered the first warning shot. Moderate thunderstorm rolls through. Nothing biblical, just your average summer blow. My basement? Flooded. For neighbors got hit, too. I documented everything, mapped the water, noted every backup and failure. Brent's response? She fines me $150 for unapproved modifications because I'd installed a French drain on my own property. You can't just dig up your yard, Garrett. It's against HOA standards. Let me give you a quick HOA 101. The whole thing is designed to crush anyone who rocks the boat. Most of my neighbors went silent. Nobody wants to end up on the wrong side of the property values. But every night, you could hear those dehumidifiers running. Nobody wanted to admit it, but everyone had moisture problems. Well, almost everyone. There was one exception. Tabitha Reeves, retired city planner, veteran of a dozen battles with cut-rate developers and cover-their-ass HOAs. The developer cuts corners, the HOA covers up, and the residents pay for it, she told me, sipping tea like a general at war. And the sound that kept me up at night? Not rain, not thunder. It was the choking, gurgling, sickly sound of storm drains dying a slow death. I'd heard it before, during hurricane response in Louisiana. You know what's coming, you just don't know when. Meanwhile, Brentha's real estate flyers bragged about superior drainage and flood protection. Any admission of a problem would torpedo her business faster than a sewage geyser in the foyer. She wasn't clueless. She was calculating. Because here's a fun fact. HOA board members can be held personally liable for known hazards they ignore. But nobody tells you that when you buy in. I tried again. Submitted another risk analysis, photos, diagrams, you name it. Begged them to approve repairs before storm season. At the next meeting, Garrett's obsessed with flooding. It's embarrassing for our community. She glared at me and said, maybe you should move somewhere that appreciates your dramatic personality. Dramatic. Lady, I was trying to save your basement. The room stayed silent. Nobody wanted to risk Brentha's wrath. But I caught Tabitha's eye, and she just gave me a tiny nod. She knew. Walking out, the crunch of gravel under my feet sounded like grinding teeth. I'd done my duty. What happened next? On them. But karma's got timing, and storm season was coming. 2 weeks later, emergency board meeting. Subject line, disruptive resident behavior. This time, Brent had backup, a pinstriped lawyer named Randolph Sterling, who looked like he charges by the sneer. We're here to discuss residents who think government experience makes them neighborhood experts, Brent announced, staring straight at me. The room reeked of cheap coffee and expensive perfume. Sterling cleared his throat. The board proposes a new $500 engineering review fee for all drainage complaints. You heard that right. $500 just to submit a safety concern. Continued harassment could result in legal action, Brent added, like she was reading off a shampoo bottle. That's when I made my second mistake. Fighting fair instead of fighting smart. Next morning, I hit the county courthouse, where the air smells like old records and even older secrets. Dolores Hutchkins, the clerk, gray hair, sharp eyes, kind voice, pulled out a thick file. Honey, you're not the first to ask questions about Pinehurst. We flipped through the papers, and there it was. Caldwell Premier Properties, Brentha's company, got $45,000 in marketing consulting from Sunset Vista, just 3 weeks before the drainage plans were approved. Developer pays, corners get cut, residents get screwed, Dolores whispered, like she was passing on a family recipe for corruption. While I was uncovering financial rot, Brent was busy weaponizing my neighbors. That afternoon, a petition lands in my mailbox, 12 signatures. We're concerned your drainage complaints are harming property values. Clever, right? Use their biggest fear, money, against them. But see, I spent time with the Army Corps. When someone brings a knife to a gunfight, you don't fight fair. I filed for HOA financial records, then hired Dana Holbrook, an environmental attorney who eats construction defect cases for breakfast. Dana read my reports and grinned. This is prosecutorial gold. Our strategy? Patience. Let them dig while we build the case. Meanwhile, I started a blog, Pinehurst Engineering Reality Check. No names, just facts, photos, calculations, projections. Neighbors started messaging me, anonymously at first, sharing their own horror stories. Turns out, half the development had basement moisture issues. But the best part? Every night now, as I walked past those squishy lawns, the crunch of gravel didn't sound like defeat anymore. It sounded like a warning shot. Brent, of course, counterattacked. Certified letters. Remove your unapproved monitoring equipment or face $300 a day fines. Sterling threatened restraining orders over my blog. But they missed something big. I was documenting everything. Courts love technical evidence more than emotional testimonials. The next rain proved my point. 3 more basements flooded. Insurance companies started asking real questions. That's when Brinth overplayed her hand. She hosted coffee and concerns, gatherings, spreading anti-Garrett propaganda. He's making everyone paranoid. His obsession hurts property values. But Tabitha? She showed up, and as only a retired city planner can, she quietly asked, Brinth, did Sunset Vista guarantee the drainage system? Of course they did, Brinth answered. So you have their engineering certifications? That pause, just a second too long, told everyone in the room the truth. Then, plot twist, Professor Quentin Fairbanks moves in next door. Retired hydrology expert from State University. One walk around the block, and he tells me, textbook hydraulic failure, designed by someone who failed fluid dynamics. Suddenly, I'm not alone crazy anymore. I'm backed by academic credentials, and incidentally, by his wife's unbeatable pecan pie. Brinth? Full panic mode. She tries to sell 3 flood-damaged homes without disclosing the drainage issues. That's real estate fraud, federal territory. Dana's eyes lit up when I showed her those listings. She's digging her own grave, Dana said, and for the first time in months, I almost smiled. Instead of authorizing real repairs, Brinth pushes a $450,000 landscaping upgrade using HOA reserves, just to slap a cosmetic Band-Aid over the flooding. But the damage was done. Homes were going on the market, values dropping, residents getting wise. Tabitha organized secret meetings for drainage supporters. Professor Fairbanks ran independent assessments, which matched my models within 3% accuracy. The National Weather Service issued warnings for the next storm. And then, just days before the storm of the decade, I get hit with a restraining order. Falsified incident reports, claims of harassment, the works. Sterling asks for a psychiatric evaluation and a $125,000 bond. They want me gone, broke, and branded as a lunatic. But Dana? She's ready. Security footage shows Brinth following me, not the other way around. Professor Fairbanks testifies about the drainage disaster waiting to happen. Judge dismisses the order with prejudice. Brinth isn't done. She hires a crisis management firm, launches a smear campaign, flyers, Facebook ads, warnings about unstable veterans with flood obsessions. But the harder she pushes, the more cracks appear. That's when we find a real smoking gun. Dana subpoenas the developer contracts, and bingo, total consulting payments to Brinth's company are $127,000. But the real kicker? She signed off on eliminating the retention pond required by original plans, all to squeeze in 4 extra lots, netting her company an extra $139,000 in commissions. She literally sold out the neighborhood's flood protection for profit. Storm day arrives, skies iron gray, air thick with that electric metallic taste. Gala night. Brinth, still strutting in heels and diamonds, is hosting 78 VIPs, including the mayor, in the community center basement. Because nothing says leadership like ignoring every warning and throwing a party in a soon-to-be swimming pool. Rain starts at 3. By 5, the parking lot's already pooling. By 7, as guests toast the strength of Pinehurst, the storm drains are maxed out. At 5.3 inches, the main outlet fails. Water backs up, first through the gutters, then through the foundation. Basement parking floods, BMWs, and Lexuses bobbing like expensive bath toys. I'm in the County Emergency Center, coordinating regional response. Watching the neighborhood I warned for months slowly fill up like a bathtub with no plug. Inside, chaos. Brinth tries to maintain control. Security guards barring the doors. Guests wading through ankle-deep water in evening wear. Professor Fairbanks guides the evacuation, documenting everything on university equipment. Jennifer Nakamura, local investigative reporter, streams the whole thing live. Preventable flooding devastates Pinehurst. Warnings ignored. Saturday morning, the reckoning. The smell of sewage and perfume hangs thick. The mayor, dripping in his tux, demands answers. Professor Fairbanks lays out the science. Dana arrives with the paperwork. I lay the original development contracts out for all to see. Brinth's signatures, the kickbacks, the deliberate decision to cut corners. The Attorney General's office serves papers for financial fraud. Federal insurance investigators show up for false claim filings. HOA votes Brinth out. Emergency dissolution motion passes 74-4. Her empire collapses live on social media as cameras pan from floating luxury cars to residents demanding real change. 6 months later, Pinehurst has a new, fully upgraded storm system, thanks to $2.8 million in federal grants and the work of residents who now listen to their engineers. Property values have bounced back. The only thing floating in the basement is laughter. The only sound in the air, the efficient gurgle of properly sized drains. Brinth? Personal bankruptcy, real estate license gone, criminal charges pending, banned from HOAs statewide. Her BMW, that old white status symbol, sold at auction for parts. Funny thing is, now those same neighbors who call me dramatic want my advice. I started dating Jennifer Nakamura. We teach flood preparedness to local kids. Tabitha's the new HOA president. Professor Fairbanks runs drainage workshops. The same folks who once dismissed me as paranoid now say, Garrett saved our homes. Here's what I learned. Sometimes the difficult person is the only one actually paying attention to reality. All it took to flip the story was relentless documentation and a little help from physics. When someone in power tries to silence expertise for the sake of their own comfort or profit, well, gravity always gets the last word. And justice? Sometimes it comes on a river of rainwater, carrying the truth right through the front door. Now let me ask you this. When does protecting property values cross the line into criminal neglect? Where's the line between leadership and outright fraud? Drop your craziest HOA or authority gone wild story below, or tell me about your own I told you so moment. I read every single one. If you love seeing karma deliver with mathematical precision, stick around. Next week, an HOA tries to bully a veteran floodplain officer and learns, the hard way, that physics does not negotiate. Because one day, it might just be your arrogant HOA president who gets washed away by the truth.